The oligarchy in Free Palestine.
I need to say something real quick. This wedding, this Jeff Bezos wedding in Venice, is hideous. It is so hideous and tacky and classless, and it just goes to show you can have all the money in the world, but not an ounce of style or class.
And I hate the dress. This is the definition of money can't buy you class, because unlimited budget, and she chose that. I'm really the hugest fan of a Dolce & Gabbana wedding dress look, but this really sealed the deal for me.
Jeff Bezos just turned Venice into his personal playground, watching $20 million vanish in rose petals, gray carpet, and more celebrities than a Met Gala after party. But instead of applause, the world served roast after roast. Money can't. By taste, they sneered, dragging Lauren Sanchez's lace corset gown, that asteroid-sized ring, and a carpet that looked stolen from an Amazon break room. Protestors unfurled banners. The 1% ruins the world, while A-listers clinked champagne a gondola ride away. Was this a fairy tale or the gaudiest flex in billionaire history? Strap in. Because behind every Vogue cover shot in Dolce and Gabbana stitch is a scandal years in the making, cheating leaks, extortion claims, and a Venice locals revolt. Let's tear down the curtains on the Bezos wedding and see why half the internet can't stop laughing. And the other half can't stop raging. Let's rewind. Jeff Bezos, once the frugal tech nerd building desks out of Home Depot doors, is now throwing $25 million weddings like their office pizza parties. But this wasn't just a wedding. It was a spectacle. Lauren Sanchez in lace, flanked by Kardashians, Oprah, Leonardo DiCaprio, and yes, even Sydney Sweeney, who had the internet wondering, when exactly did she and Bezos become BFFs? It didn't feel like a celebration of love, it felt like a LinkedIn flex, disguised as a ceremony. People weren't mad just because it was excessive. They were mad because it felt empty. No family speeches. No real friends, just sea of PR smiles and high-profile clout. To critics, it was a wedding curated not for emotion, but for optic status, power, and Instagram likes. And right as the couple kissed, the vibe outside turned to protest banners and chants echoing through Venice's narrow canals. Because while guests sipped champagne inside, the city outside was boiling. Outside the luxury bubble, Venice locals were fuming. Activists lined the streets, scaling poles to hang banners that read, "If you can rent Venice for your wedding, you can pay more taxes." Environmental groups joined in, accusing Bezos of turning a historic city into a billionaire's private backdrop. City officials claimed everything was under control, no water taxes blocked, no gondolas hijacked, but that didn't stop the outrage. Protesters flooded landmarks, chanting that Venice was no longer a city but a theme park for the ultra-rich. And just when you thought the backlash couldn't get worse, Bezos tried to play damage control. He handed out water and ice cream to sweating reporters, yes, seriously, as if a popsicle can melt the resentment. But no amount of free snacks could cool down the heat. To many, this wedding wasn't just tone-deaf, it was a symbol of everything wrong with billionaire culture: excess without empathy, wealth without awareness, love wrapped in lace, saged for headlines, and the internet? Oh, it exploded. Within hours, Lauren's dress was trending for all the wrong reasons. People dragged the custom Dolce & Gabbana corset gown, calling it tacky, over-designed, and costume party couture. The memes came fast. One viral post joked, "Bezos dropped $20 million and still couldn't buy her a stylist." But it didn't stop there. That massive engagement ring? Compared to a costume jewelry prop, users wondered if it came with its own gravity field. How do her fingers still function? One tweet asked, racking up thousands of likes. But the most brutal roasting? That gray wedding carpet. Social media lost it. Guests walked across one of the world's most romantic cities only to step onto what looked like an Amazon warehouse floor. Memes called it Bezos chic and corporate. Lobby couture? One user deadpanned, "Nothing says eternal love like flooring from the break room." It was giving money can't buy you class energy, loud, clear, and relentless. Even Vogue couldn't save them. Lauren landed a cover story to flaunt her gown, her love story, her billionaire fairy tale, but the timing, disastrous. Just days. Earlier, fashion icon Anna Wintour announced she was stepping down from Vogue, and the internet instantly made the connection. Now we know why, joked one post. The dress, the carpet, the overall vibe, to many, it felt like the final straw. A high fashion magazine turned into a billionaire wedding brochure, and critics weren't shy about calling it out. And it didn't help that everything about the event screamed curated clout. From celebrity seating charts to candlelit yachts, it felt more like an influencer event than a wedding. As one viral video put it, this wasn't a marriage, it was a marketing campaign. For Jeff and Lauren, this was a brand activation dressed up in white lace and champagne. And while the flashbulbs popped, the backlash only burned hotter. Because when you spend $25 million to prove you've made it, you'd better hope the world believes you actually belong. But here's where it gets even more surreal, because this wasn't just some flashy Hollywood moment. It was Jeff Bezos rebranding in real time. From scrappy startup guy with a laughable haircut to the poster child of billionaire extravagance. And this wedding? It wasn't about love, it was about legacy. Every drone shot, every leaked guest list, every awkward gray carpet meticulously crafted to place Bezos among the world's untouchables. And yet, despite the $200 billion net worth, it all felt hollow. People pointed out that for someone with that much money, the whole thing looked like a high-budget office party. And when you break it down, a $25 million wedding for Bezos is like someone earning $500K a year spending just $120. It's nothing. Which is why critics weren't focused on the cost, they were focused on the message. This wasn't just about marrying Lauren, it was about cementing Jeff's place in the new Hollywood elite. A performance, a power move, a statement. But one that left the world more entertained, confused, and frustrated than inspired. And maybe that's the irony of it all, Jeff Bezos. The man who revolutionized online shopping, who once bragged about building desks out of doors to save money, just threw a wedding so disconnected from the real world it sparked global memes and local protests. From handing out ice cream to reporters to flying in celebrities like it's a Met Gala, the entire event felt like a surreal PR campaign masquerading as matrimony. But for all the flash, all the press, and all the Instagram perfect photos, one question still echoes louder than the vows. Was it worth it? Because in trying so hard to buy elegance, status, and cultural legitimacy, Bezos may have proven what people feared all along, that all the money in the world still can't purchase authenticity. And in the age of TikTok takedowns and Twitter clapbacks, that might be the most expensive lesson of all, and in the end, the legacy Jeff Bezos crafted with this wedding wasn't one of timeless romance, it was one of spectacle. A billionaire fairy tale too glossy to feel real, too strategic to feel sincere. Venice wasn't just a backdrop, it was a symbol. A sinking city overwhelmed by wealth, beauty, and exploitation, just like the wedding itself. Protestors didn't just see a ceremony, they saw a headline that confirmed every frustration they've been shouting for years. The rich don't live in the same world as the rest of us. So while Jeff and Lauren sail off into their version of happily ever after, the rest of the world is left with a bitter taste and a viral thread. A moment that was meant to scream power, influence, and love, instead became a reminder of the disconnect. Because at the heart of it all, when you peel away the diamonds, Dolce and Gabbana, and drone footage, what's left isn't intimacy. It's image. And maybe that's what people are really reacting to. Not just the dress, not just the carpet, but the fact that even in love, billionaires can't help but turn everything into a brand. And that's the haunting reality of this so-called fairy tale. What should have been a personal celebration turned into a performance for the algorithm. A wedding optimized not for love, but for optics. Every detail, from the guest list to the decor, wasn't designed for memory, it was designed for virality. For Vogue spreads, paparazzi angles, trending tweets, and Instagram reposts. Because in 2025, legacy isn't built in boardrooms or even bedrooms. It's built in reels, retweets, and reposts. And Jeff Bezos? He understands that better than anyone. But in trying to control the narrative so tightly, he may have lost the one thing money can't replicate: human connection. The world watched, laughed, cringed, and moved on. But the message lingered. You can spend $500 million on a wedding, but you can't manufacture meaning. And if this was supposed to be the grand climax of Bezos' reinvention, it might just be the start of his most awkward chapter yet. Because in the court of public opinion, authenticity still reigns. And no amount of diamonds, yachts, or celebrity cameos can fake that. What the world saw wasn't two people madly in love, it was two billionaires staging a blockbuster. A wedding that felt more like a sponsored event than a sacred moment. And that's why it struck a nerve. Not because people hate weddings or wealth, but because they crave something real. And in a time when everyday people are struggling to afford groceries or rent, watching a spectacle that seemed so performative, so tone-deaf, so out of touch, felt like a slap in the face. So while Jeff and Lauren may have walked down the aisle surrounded by the 1%, the 99% walked away unimpressed. Not jealous, not bitter, just exhausted. Because in the end, this wasn't a celebration of love, it was a billboard for power. And that's what makes it unforgettable. For all. The wrong reasons. And maybe that's the final twist. For all the effort poured into crafting a picture-perfect narrative, the internet flipped it on its head. Instead of admiration, it sparked outrage. Instead of envy, it inspired memes. What was meant to be a crowning moment of status turned into a case study and disconnect, a reminder that influence can't be forced, and respect can't be bought. Jeff Bezos built a trillion-dollar empire by predicting what people wanted before they even knew it. But this time, he misread the room. In trying to stage the ultimate power wedding, he gave the world something else entirely, a reason to question what all that power is really worth. Because when the champagne stops flowing and the cameras pack up, all that's left is the story we choose to remember. And this one? It'll be remembered not for love or legacy, but for the carpet, the chaos, and the costly illusion that even $200 billion can't buy class. And that's the irony. The ying the evening man who revolutionized convenience couldn't curate authenticity. The couple who had access to the world's greatest artists, designers, and storytellers still couldn't craft a moment that felt genuinely human. Not because they lacked resources, but because they chased perception over presence. In the end, Jeff Bezos' wedding wasn't a celebration, it was a spectacle. A perfectly staged, meticulously branded, emotionally hollow blockbuster. And just like most big-budget flops, it will be talked about but not cherished, mocked but not admired, remembered but not revered, because in a world that's starving for sincerity, no one wants to RSVP to a love story that feels like a press release. And maybe that's the true cost far beyond the millions spent on gowns, yachts, and gray carpets. The real price is credibility. Because when the curtain drops on a wedding like this, what's exposed isn't just excess, it's emptiness. People aren't dragging the event because they hate wealth. They're dragging it because they saw through it. Behind the filters and fireworks, it looked more like a lonely parade of power than a union built on love. And that's what lingers. In a world where people crave something to believe in, where connection, meaning, and shared emotion matter more than optics, this wedding reminded everyone that money can buy a stage, but it can't write the script. And no matter how many celebrities fill the front row, the audience still knows when the show feels fake. So as the headlines fade and the champagne glasses are cleared, what's left behind isn't admiration, it's a question. Was any of it real? Because deep down, viewers didn't just see a wedding. They saw a mirror held up to a world where wealth performs and love gets lost in the performance. Where even the most private vows are recited for clicks, not connection. And where the line between celebration and spectacle has completely vanished. Jeff and Lauren's wedding wasn't a fairy tale. It was a billboard. And in trying so hard to look timeless, it accidentally captured the most fleeting thing of all our collective exhaustion with the illusion of it all. In the end, maybe the most honest thing about this wedding was the backlash, because the backlash wasn't about jealousy, it was about values. It was a cultural reflex, a gut reaction to the widening gap between those who throw parties in palaces and those who can't afford rent. It wasn't the ring or the dress or the guest list that set people off, it was the overwhelming feeling that none of it meant anything. That's the wound this wedding touched. Not because people don't want beauty or celebration, but because they want those things to come from a place of truth. And when the richest man on earth throws a party that feels like a parody of wealth, it reminds everyone just how far we've drifted from what weddings are supposed to be. Not billboards, not branding campaigns, but love, connection, humanity. And that's the one thing this wedding, with all its fireworks and filters, just couldn't fake.